Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on nonprofit payment processing. Really excited to have you on with us today. If you could just say hello in the chat, maybe your organization and where you're from. I'm coming from Kennesaw, Georgia. I think we've got George, St. Louis, and Chip, where are you?
I'm in Foster City, California, in the Bay Area.
Okay, perfect. Really appreciate everybody being here. Susie, welcome. Amanda, good to see you in here. Just some housekeeping stuff. Over on the right, this is where the chat is. This is where you have the ability to post questions as we go along. I will also drop some polls as we go through this. That'll also be on the right, which you'll have an opportunity to respond to. This will be recorded. I probably will send out the recording tomorrow, Saturday, probably at the latest. So if you have to step away, don't worry. You will get a recording of this. I hope that you will stick around. At the end, we are going to have a little offer for you that if you're struggling with your payment processing in any way, you can sign up for a free audit with myself and George to help you guys out. Let's start with some introductions. I am Ronald Pruitt. I'm the president and founder of For a Good Cause. If you're not familiar with For a Good Cause, we are a software platform that helps nonprofits fundraise online. Our specialty really is recurring monthly donations. So helping you get that recurring, reliable revenue. We've got a couple of really great payment experts here. We've got a lot of experience here in the room. I'm going to introduce George and Chip to you here. They're going to be taking your questions, and we've got some things that we're going to be discussing about payment processing. George, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and who you work for.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm George Crane. I work at Swipesum. We are a payments consultancy. So any given day, we're having conversations around payments literacy, which becomes, as you guys know, even more important with nonprofits, with missions, and finding ways for people to cut costs so that they can put more of their revenue toward the things they want to accomplish.
Great. We're glad to have you here, George. Chip, tell us about yourself and your experience. And you work with one of our favorite partners, Authorized.net.
Yeah, so my name is Chip Strause, and yeah, I work for Authorized.net. I've been here about 16 years, so quite a long time. And I run our part of our business that provides merchant accounts and e-check accounts to Authorized.net merchants.
Perfect. As I say, a lot of experience in the room. We appreciate you guys being here. Stephanie, Tim, good to see you here in the chat. Anybody else want to say hello, please do that. I'm going to kind of just start us out by dropping a poll to the audience here. And this is really about what is your biggest pain point with your payment processing. And any of these things, catch your eye or something that you're struggling with, look on the right, post your answer there. We are going to kind of be telling you things that, answering questions, but we also want to learn from you a little bit about the things that you're struggling with. So, okay, I'm seeing high fees and donor experience. High fees, we kind of knew that was going to be on the list. We got a few questions during the registration about that as well, and we're definitely going to hit that. I think we're going to really kind of frame our conversation today around some kind of big areas. One would be, how you make decisions about payment processing and payment choices is going to either help you raise more money or hurt your ability to raise more money. Second big thing is saving. You're raising money, but how are you going to keep more of what you raise? So reducing those transaction costs. Third big thing is we want donors to give longer. So we're talking a lot about recurring payments and, keeping cards charging and all that good stuff. that's payment related. And then finally, something that you cannot forget about, and that's security and fraud prevention and making sure that you're keeping your donors safe. So we're going to kind of run through some questions that kind of pertain to those. If you have questions as we go along, just put them in the chat. We're going to have some time, hopefully at the end, get to all those, or we'll work those in as we go. So I want to just start us off by thinking about how we can raise more money with our payment processing and payment option choices. And Chip, I'm going to start with you. Right now, what payment methods are dominating the landscape, either in the for-profit or nonprofit world, and are some, really taking off, or some on the wane? What are you seeing out there as far as what should a nonprofit be offering to their donors in terms of how they can pay for a donation?
Yeah. I think that probably the most important thing is, and where we see a lot of focus, is just giving your customers choice on how they pay. So sort of both card and ACH, giving them those options is probably, I would say, the most important thing. And it really, I think the preference is always to, particularly in the nonprofit world where cost is important, as a lot of you have, put in the poll. It's really important to sort of think about the context in which they're giving, right? So when you're talking about something like recurring billing with sort of a customer or a donor that you have a close relationship with, an established relationship with, that those are really opportunities where you can sort of maybe transition or get that donor to be paying with ACH. If you're doing something that's more, I would say, sort of out in the wilderness, where you maybe don't have, you're doing a fundraiser, but you don't have maybe a relationship with the people that are logging into your site or attending an event or whatever, they're probably going to want to pay, with cards. So having that optionality for customers, I think, is probably the most important.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about choice. I happened to come across a stat recently. It was a study done by DHL, and just the concept of having multiple choices on the checkout process, in the nonprofit case, that would be a donation form, increased conversions by 30%. So it's a concept of kind of meeting donors where they are, and they feel comfortable using that particular payment method. They see that payment method that makes them more inclined to give. George, what are you seeing in the people that you're talking to? I'm sure, mobile wallets probably come up quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Just meeting donors where they're at, meeting customers where they're at, providing more options than less. I think, sometimes you'll come across a donor or a customer who has, they're very against one type of payment, but they'll see a few others, and that comfort level, kind of comes back to equilibrium. So I see a few kind of features or options, mobile wallets, combination, take your pick, that are popular right now. Obviously the two main ones a lot of people kind of just carry, on their phone, or Cash App and Venmo, and you have those, but you also have those, the PayPal option, Google Pay, Apple Pay. We see all of those. That's one reason we love working with Ronald and For a Good Cause, because those are all supported. But even getting into kind of the weeds, and text to pay options are becoming really popular. Text to donate, maybe in this context, but and then, kind of similar to what Chip said, ACH options and e-check options, where people who are a little more fee conscious want to cut some costs there. That's a great way to do it. Also supported by For a Good Cause, which we love. In that way, it's kind of a Swiss Army knife. But yeah, just more options than less, meeting where they're at, giving them comfort. Kind of the other side of that, and on what's on the way out, is maybe that traditional experience of giving a credit card number over a phone. A lot more discomfort around that nowadays.
Yeah.
And also, kind of take your pick of studies, but there's so many interesting studies out now about just the true cost of cash. And when you think about meeting people where they're at, whether it be a gala or an event, so many people, don't carry cash anymore. But also as a business or a nonprofit, some studies are saying that the cost of cash can be, 15% or more when all the variables are considered. So if you're fee conscious, there's so many great options. I know we'll talk a little bit more about them today, but that's what we're seeing.
The cash thing, it's kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Is that just because is that because you're losing out? Like let's say you're at a gala, donor doesn't have cash on them because they just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
They might have Apple Pay, Google Pay on their phone, but they don't have that cash in their pocket. And that makes it difficult for you to get the donation and maybe also to get a large donation.
Yeah.
If that's your only option.
Yeah, there's so much risk associated with carrying cash, but also just the aspect of accepting it. The time and people and personnel to accept it, to count it. Typically, we're seeing cash transactions on smaller ticket items as well. So having card options, ACH check options, you kind of sign yourself up for a different range of donation as well when you provide those options. And all the different time invested in taking cash to the bank and all these different variables, from ticket size to people and personnel, to just the risk of carrying it. I think more people we're gonna kind of see that. I think a lot of people know that trend, but I think we're only going to see it kind of solidify itself in the years ahead.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I can add one other thing real quickly, which as being old enough to have adult children, they don't carry cards, right? They carry their phone and that's it. And if something it's not mobile first, it's not enabling a mobile payment, they're not gonna pay, right? Yeah. I think you see increasingly, people in their 20s and whatnot, they just don't carry cards. They don't carry cash. You have to be sort of mobile first. You have to be mobile friendly.
Yeah. And I've seen just, in the, just the trends and the studies and all the things that you see, the mobile wallets, especially like the Google Pay and Apple Pay, things that are just tied to your infrastructure, that you own an Android, that you own an Apple device, that they're just very tied to that. And I saw something on FinTech magazine, 50% of e-commerce transactions are going to be pushed through with mobile wallets this year. Yeah. That's amazing. So cash is going away, but card, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And I'd say anyone who's ever, ridden the New York City subway and you hear the train coming as you're going down the steps knows how important it is to have that digital wallet so you can just tap and get through that turnstile. So
That's right. So I think raising more money, it's really about meeting donors where they are. George, you mentioned just kind of thinking about that in-person thing. So, at For a Good Cause, we're often thinking about online. We do have text to donate, and you can use a QR code to get in-person people to making a gift. But I'm just curious, you're out looking at solutions. What's kind of out there for a nonprofit to be able to very easily and quickly, dip that card or take that payment, at an event, in-person type thing. What's typical or what's available for them?
Yeah, there's a lot of options. We mentioned text to pay or text to donate in this case. I think that's a great option, especially at scale. If you're a smaller, organization hosting a big event, and the ratio is kind of out of your favor, or I should say in your favor, you have a lot of guests, you may not be able to have real
get around. Yeah.
I think that's an awesome option. The QR code, so many people are familiar with that just from the past few years and the way you order at restaurants changing and things like that at the table. Two great options, but another option we regularly recommend, especially kind of in the home service industry, so a little outside of the nonprofit world, but still very relevant, is a Bluetooth mobile reader. So I know there's some great options that sync to authorize.net, which would make it compatible with For a Good Cause. And we love those, especially, if you're an organization who's doing something like an annual event, like a gala or, just a networking event or something like in a venue that you're not familiar with. So many businesses, you go into, you're familiar with that point of sale that's plugged into the Ethernet and all that good stuff. But when you're kind of out in the wild or in the woods, as Chip would say, you need something that's a little more profitable. So a Bluetooth mobile reader is a great option. I would recommend that highly, but just kind of supplementing that with a text to pay option or a QR code to a hosted payments page, something that Ronald has a ton of expertise in setting up, something like that.
Yeah. And I know Chip, Authorized.net, is coming out with a new mobile app. Sometime this year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We have a bunch of new features and functionality coming in a couple months. And so right now we do support a Bluetooth device called the Chipper 3X. And we are going to be adding additional devices that are supported, as well as tap to phone, which I think is going to be a sort of a game changer, a big convenience booster for nonprofits and all types of merchants.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So yeah, I think when it comes to raising more money, it's really about meeting donors where they are, giving them the choice that they're comfortable with. More choice, present it easily on the form. You're good to go. Let's pivot to saving money. This is always the big thing that comes up when you're thinking about acquiring a merchant account, or thinking about your payment processing. You're like, gosh, I just don't want a ton of fees. I want to be able to save money. Since we're talking about payment options, Chip, I'll come to you first. There certainly is a different cost structure when it comes to card versus something like ACH, and that's a big opportunity for savings.
Yeah. Generally, ACH is about a fourth of the cost of what you typically would pay with cards. So
now playing parties on the dance floor.
Someone's on the dance
Someone's
floor.
Someone's Alexa went off there.
So ACH tends to be a lot less expensive, and so anytime you can push donors to using ACH over card, that's a good way to save cost. And when you think of like recurring monthly donations and whatnot, I mean, ACH is a really good option. Whereas you still want to, of course, have card. You want to give customers those choice, but if you can use that perhaps more when it's a one-time fundraiser or something like that, where people aren't going to have their checkbooks, so to speak, that wouldn't have their bank account numbers memorized or with them. You want to be able to provide card, but anytime that you can push your donors to ACH, you'll see a significant reduction in cost.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking typically ACH, e-check is 0.75% typically.
Yep.
But when you look at a card, you're looking between 2% and 3%, and then you do, and then in the nonprofit space, not for a good cause, but at many of our competitors, they're going to tag on an extra percentage on top of whatever your credit card fees are, just for the platform, which is a huge issue right now going on in the nonprofit space, that we're trying to fight with it, doing things a different way, by allowing donors to opt in to an extra donation to help you offset your costs, but instead of taking that ourselves, we send that to the nonprofit, which then they come out ahead of all the other platforms that do that. And you're talking about really encouraging e-checks. I want to share my screen just really quickly, just to show you our donation form. Should be able to see it. Here we go. We do have the ability on the back end that you can basically default to electronic check or ACH, bank transfer, whatever you want to call it, and put that first. And sometimes we'll see a nonprofit actually up in the top, where they talk about why you should give. They'll have a brief mention that, hey, choose ACH, choose e-check to help us, retain more of your donation. So there are ways that you can do that smartly and push donors into that option. George, you do this every day. You are out doing consulting, and you do it for free for nonprofits, out there trying to find solutions for them that save them money. What do you find when you do that? Where do you find the savings for them? And what do they just not know about their place in the market? Tell us kind of how you do your work and what you're finding that nonprofits should be aware of.
Yeah, there's a few key things that we see kind of relevant with every nonprofit we talk about. So Visa, MasterCard, if anyone's unfamiliar with the term interchange, I'd love to kind of fill you in. But interchange is a non-negotiable portion of a credit card fee. So everything we've talked about already stands, more options and less, ACH, e-check options. But you're still going to have card payments. And when you do, interchange is at play. So something that's set by Visa, MasterCard, and the issuing cardholders bank. So that kind of true non-negotiable cost to accepting credit cards. Nonprofits actually have discounted rates. There's a program through Visa and MasterCard for you guys to take advantage of that lowers those costs. So as you're thinking of providers and thinking about some of these things, a provider that can, kind of give you an audit and ensure you're getting the right price for your status, your 501c status. So that's the first thing that we typically look at is to ensure that you're opted into the programs you're eligible for. Huge benefit there, some kind of cost savings things right away. Most people, I feel like, Stripe or Square, QuickBooks, when they stand a nonprofit up fast, we often come across there's kind of a little pushback, or there's maybe not enough pushback on some of these off-the-shelf products where that kind of standard pricing you hear, 2.9 and 30 cents, which depending on your volume from your donations, can be misleading because usually it comes in somewhere north of 3%, 3.5%. We've seen it upwards of 4.5%. So we're looking at that effective rate and something to keep in your back pocket as you're running your nonprofit and you're thinking about these costs month to month is just a simple equation, is typically where we start for your effective rate. So total fees divided by total revenue, move the decimal point 2 to the right, and you'll kind of have a quick pulse check on how competitive your rates are. And that will tell you really quickly, am I taking advantage of the discounts Visa and MasterCard provide me for my nonprofit status? So we start there. A few other things we see is, we like to help people choose the right provider first, which is so much easier said than done, obviously, especially when you're moving fast and you're trying to accomplish goals. But, picking the right provider fast, finding the right solution like for a good cause first can save a lot of heartache, a lot of time, which, necessarily we don't always have on the balance sheet is wasted time. That's something we like to help with as well. We kind of have at Swipesum, we have a tagline as your chief payments officer. So having someone, especially as you're starting out, you can have someone who knows payments on your side without having them on your payroll, which is a huge saver as well. I think those are the things we kind of see off the bat, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, those interchange rates, those are, I kind of think of them as basically wholesale rates, and then your payment provider, that's part of their cost, and they're going to add on something for themselves. Mm-hmm. You first want to make sure that you get your nonprofit status. And I know exactly what you're talking about with something like a QuickBooks or just something off the shelf that's a bigger company. A lot of times they're not going to tell you that you're eligible for anything, any kind of discount or anything behind the scenes that you're eligible for. So, I mean, having someone in your corner, that's a smart play to do that. Anything to add on that, Chip? Anything you see or any kind of red flags, if a nonprofit's out shopping, for payment processing, things to look out for in terms of cost?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that always look at your statements and look for any fees that you're not sort of familiar with or whatnot, because there's a lot of ways that fees can get tacked on, and so you should be on top of that and make sure that you sort of know what you're paying for.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, George, are there like like things like in a merchant account contract that, boy, that's a hidden fee, you need to watch out for that?
Yeah.
What should a nonprofit ask someone before they sign on the dotted line to make sure that they're getting a really true answer about what their cost is going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having an ally helps, obviously, and I hate to say this, but there's so many things to look out for. But if you don't recognize something, I think they should raise that flag to ask that question. I think the more obvious ones are monthly minimums, especially with there's 5,000 plus independent sales organizations, ISOs, reselling payments, in North America. There and with that, that kind of gives you as the nonprofit a little more bargaining power up front. So you don't have to settle for things like monthly minimums anymore. Early termination fees, we help redline out of contracts all the time. Sometimes we found fees disguised with card brand acronyms. So the shorthand for Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, you'll see these things that these independent sales organizations will tag on and kind of disguise as someone else's fee. But we kind of know based on where it falls in your statement and what category, if it's really from the card brands or not. So that's another one. A lot of times we'll find downgrades without like accompanying a reason accompanying it. And that's a big one that's really relevant for nonprofits and your guys' interchange discounts. So
does that mean that some hidden criteria, you won't get the discount anymore and the rate flies up?
Yeah, and
particular transaction,
they're not going to jump to remind you why,
right?
Obviously, because that mistake is to their benefit. So we actually have a client, not a nonprofit, but an energy provider here in the Midwest who we caught. And we did an analysis of their statements, and we actually found $100K plus in savings per month just from downgrades. That they had their provider, when you reach out to them, they have these reasons why these cards are getting downgraded, and they just didn't know to ask. So little things like that, inexplicable additional fees, kind of like Chip mentioned. Be aware of the sleight of hand that a provider will lead with. Usually it's, we're going to give you a great transactional rate. And then you look at your statement at the end of the month, and you see all these different fees where they collect back, the margin for the profit that they're looking to make off your account. So things like that. PCI compliance is something else. Everyone kind of, they know the term. They have a general idea that they need to complete it every year, but that's another red flag, is a provider who doesn't remind you about, how to stay compliant, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit later as well. But little things like that, fine print on your statements, like Chip mentioned, look at your statements. It's not fun, but hopefully leaving today, you guys have, an ally who can help you look at those things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, things I've seen, we're talking about each ACH versus card. I came across something to basically study that you'll save 30 to 50% by going the ACH route. That's huge.
That's awesome.
And I think really in general, after today, gosh, if you can really just take a hard look at what you're doing and maybe say, okay, can we shave 0.25%, 0.5% off that effective rate, 1% off that effective rate of what you pay, which, like you say, George, it's not whatever that rate that they quote you. It's not that top line rate. It's when you go back and look at the statement and you say, well, I made this month and I paid out this. And I also want to know one thing that's really big in the nonprofit world right now, and that's this concept of free fundraising, where the platform is going to tell you, don't worry about the rate, don't worry about anything. We're gonna make our money off donor tips. And we've done some of the math on that too. And what you're really doing is you're transferring the cost to your donor. And we did a breakdown of like $10,000 a month in processing and the donor tips, they were asking for anywhere between 15 to 25% to a donor, that's an insane percentage. It came out to basically your effective cost was around 12 to 15%. It's just you've given that to your donor and in reality, that donor would have given that extra percentage direct to you, or wanted to give it direct to you, or thought they were giving it direct to you, because sometimes that stuff can be a little deceiving. So so I think choose the right payment options to save you money. Really dig into your statements, and we'll talk about our offer to kind of help you guys do that, to find those cost savings, and look at your effective rates. That's really what you want to look at. So
yeah, and just looking at Gerald's comment in the chat, I think one of the advantages that nonprofits have, because everybody wants to get their miles, right? I'm no different, but when you're talking about making donations to an organization that you care about, being upfront that it can save the organization money, and that their donation goes farther in helping them achieve their mission, usually is a pretty good way of getting over this, the person's desire to get a few more miles.
Yeah, that's certainly something if you can communicate that. And like we said before, if you got the Apple Pay, Google Pay, if they can pay quick, go ahead and apply those miles. The way we do things at For Good Cause is, and through platforms like Authorized.net, is that Google Pay and Apple Pay processes exactly like a credit card. There's no additional fees. It's just a wallet. It's just a way for the donor to grab that card and to move forward and pay just like they would with just by typing in the card. Just makes it easier for them. So it's perfect, guys. Let's step into and guys, if you have questions, feel free to drop those in as we go along here. Let's step into kind of thinking about donors giving longer, because a lot of payment, related things that go with that. And here at For Good Cause, one of our big specialties or things we advocate for is monthly giving. So those recurring payments, donor gives a small amount on their card or through ACH from their bank account, gives automatically every month. This is something that right now, it's really one of the few things that's growing in fundraising. Overall giving is down, number of donors is down. This is all kind of looking at like 2024 reports, looking back at 2023 as a study we follow, the M&R benchmark study. Like overall giving is down. Online revenue is down for nonprofits in 2023, but what rose was recurring giving, monthly giving. So this is something that helps you keep donors longer. It's easy for donors to come in at a small amount. They typically give for over 8 years. These are loyal people. You're making it easy for them to give. But there's a lot of kind of payment stuff that relates to this. Chip, if I'm thinking I want to launch a monthly giving program, I got to have some kind of recurring payments system. What should I look for there? Where am I? Should that card information be stored at the payment processing level, down on the website? Give me an overall sense of what I should be looking for when it comes to recurring billing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, recurring billing, especially, in the nonprofit space is, I think table stakes. And so what you should be looking for is, first of all, that recurring billing functionality, right? So that it's all automated. And then you want to be looking for something that stores the payment credential, right? You don't want to ask the user to have to do something every month to keep that recurring billing going. So, for example, Authorized.net has what we call our Customer Information Manager, SIM system, which tokenizes either an ACH or a card, number, and attaches that to that customer. It works seamlessly with the recurring billing, so that user puts in their information, and then just every month, like Ron was saying, you get that that monthly charge, and it's it's easy for the customer, just that one time where they have to provide their payment credentials, and then it's easy for you, right? It's an automated system, so you don't have to really worry about it. And then I would say the one other thing is, on the card side is what's called account updater, and so that's something that a lot of providers offer, including Authorized.net. And what account updater does is it basically, if somebody's card expires and they get issued a new one, or if they lost their card or got stolen and it had to be reissued, which happens, quite frequently, it will automatically update that card number. And so, what we've found is that, the first time you run account updater, like if you have a big long list of donors and you run it that first time, there'll be a lot of, usually like 20, 30, 35% of the cards need to be updated.
Wow.
And then just sort of on an ongoing monthly basis, having that run, and generally about 7 or 8% of your cards will have expired or been reissued. And so, keeping that seamless so that, the donor just continues to pay month after month, and you don't have to go back to them and say, hey, your card's expired or whatnot. Can you go through the whole process again? I think those are really the keys to making a recurring billing system that really maximizes the amount of revenue and donations you're going to get from your users.
Yeah, those percentages, that's saved revenue.
Oh,
every single month. That's you're saving that. And in the nonprofit world, it costs you 50 to 100% more to go out and get a brand new donor than it does to keep the one you have. So keeping those payments on track with something like account updater is, that's perfect.
And if I could add, I
Yeah.
think that's a huge benefit to, recurring. I love this model. If I haven't said it already, the recurring donation model, and nonprofits now, these things like Chip's mentioning with Auth.net's account updater feature, you guys are, using the tools of the biggest companies in the world, really, especially in the age of streaming. Everyone's used to having their card on file for something. You're using these tools that these companies like Hulu and Netflix, or whatever, Spotify, whatever you use for music, people are, open to this model. They're used to it. It's nothing new. And now you guys have a tool that can help you kind of use the same features that these big companies are using to, be successful. So not to mention, you also get to, benefit from having a platform like Auth.net, where you keep all that PAN data, that sensitive customer information, off of your server and stay compliant at the same time. It's kind of a win-win.
Yeah. We don't want that stuff down on the website at all. Absolutely not. There's a question in the chat here from Susie. Is account updater free? We use Authorized.net. Chip, you
so account updater is, I believe, 25 cents for every time a card is successfully updated. So you run it against all of your cards. If it requires an update, I think it's 25 cents per update.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. That is a no-brainer, because imagine you have to reach out to that donor, the labor just to keep that donor on track, when automatically, without the donor knowing it, you had that happen. We actually, if for a good cause, a lot of things we do is we will piggyback on things that are happening in the gateway, in Authorized.net, to use our platform to enhance the experience, the things that are happening in the recurring billing system. So if there is a card that's about to expire, we will send a notice to the donor and notice to the nonprofit. If the card fails, we send a notice to the donor and notice to the nonprofit. And all these things are friendly customer service type stuff. And then it drives the donor into their donor account, where they can easily change the amount, change the card, if it's ACH, update their banking information. it's kind of a combination of, you need the back end system that is safe and secure and just keeps processing those payments like they're supposed to. And then kind of the customer service and tech to, talk to the donors to make sure that they take any action that they need to. And then all of our systems, single click, it just updates it back into where that card is stored, back in the CIM, back in the recurring billing system. So we did have a question that was submitted online by a Megan asking, is For Good Cause recurring payments compliant with the new FTC click to cancel rule? And the answer is yes. If you're not familiar with the click to cancel rule, basically it's a new rule out by the government that says you have to make it as easy to cancel as it is to enroll. And you've kind of seen the proliferation now of little apps like Rocket Money. Chip, I think Visa has an app where it's easy to cancel, and you're seeing just in general a desire from the marketplace to just make it easy to cancel. And in For Good Cause, yes, inside that donor account, you can click to cancel, and single click, and it'll send you a nice thank you email. Hey, I hope you give next time, and alert the nonprofit as well. So yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive in some ways. If you make it easy to cancel, it actually helps people you'll get more enrollments.
It is.
You wouldn't think that, but it's true.
Yeah, it does tell you how effective recurring billing is that the FTC felt that it needed to come up with something to make it easy to cancel as well. So. Subscription
services on the for-profit side, it has exploded over the last 10 years. There is no doubt about that. And now it's starting to really gain traction in the nonprofit space. So this is something that you need to embrace. And if you got a really simple system on the back end that's really handling those payments and keeping donors up to date as to what they can do, you can be really, really successful with it. All right, let's talk a little bit about security, and I'm going to drop another poll here on the right. I'm just curious, everybody, how confident you are that your current payment system that you have in place is secure. 1 would be not very confident. 5 would be very confident. Coming in mostly on the 4 and 5 here. That's good. That's good to see. Chip, tell us, kind of thinking about the nonprofit space, what are some of the biggest threats that nonprofits really should be focused on for keeping their donor data safe, or keeping their merchant account, their payment processing account safe as well? Because it's like keeping themselves safe and keeping their donors safe. What should they be focused on?
It's funny. You would think that nonprofits would not be the target of fraudsters and criminal gangs and whatnot. And exactly because I think most people in the nonprofit space don't see themselves as targets, they have become big targets. So we see, I think what we see most commonly is what's called card testing or card enumeration attacks. And those are, basically the currency in the criminal world these days is card numbers. And so you have people either stealing or guessing, credit card numbers, and then they need to test those to see if they're actually active. And if they're active, then they actually sell them to other criminal gangs who monetize these. And so, what we find with a lot of nonprofits is they may not have the best security in place to stop these card testing attacks. And so a fraudster will, through maybe account compromise, so keep your passwords, safe, change them regularly, or through just attacks on if there's like a guest checkout without what's called rate limiting. Sometimes the fraudsters can take advantage of that and submit thousands and thousands. I mean, we've seen tens of thousands, we've seen hundreds of thousands of card testing transactions run through nonprofits. And the impact to you, obviously, I mean, there's an impact to those card holders whose cards are going to have to get canceled and reissued, but specifically to the nonprofits, you're going to be faced with authorization fees, right? If somebody runs 50,000 transactions through your system, your acquirer has costs that they're going to have to cover. So even if they can cut you a break or something like that, they're still going to, it could potentially cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest threats we see to nonprofits. And, really what you want to do to prevent those. I mean, first of all, again, just the normal blocking and tackling that you should be doing, which is change your passwords often, restrict access to only those who need it. If you have a lot of volunteers working in your organization, perhaps, they don't need access to, the payment system. And then the other thing is use fraud filters. And so, in authorized.net, we have what's called our anti-fraud detection suite, AFDS. And the most important is just putting a velocity filter in place. If you're not, experiencing more than, say, like 50 transactions a day, then put a fraud filter for 150 or 200 transactions per day or something per hour, and just protect yourself that way. If you have, a big, fundraising day, maybe you go in and you change the filters before that occurs, and then you put them in place right after. But you want to make sure that you're using a system that has velocity controls and that you are actively using those velocity controls. Because you can really find yourself in trouble if a bad actor gets a hold of your account somehow and runs 50, 100,000 transactions through your system.
Yeah, one of the filters I like the best is the, kind of the velocity by IP address. So a lot of times if they're bad actors, they're bagging on your pages from a single computer or multiple attempts that might be automated, that kind of stuff. That could put a stop to that. We also kind of pair, these back-end fraud filters with just kind of basic, reCAPTCHA stuff from Google, and just making sure that we're doing everything in our power to prevent bad actors from abusing any nonprofits. And George, anything to kind of add on that front?
No, I actually, we dealt with this as recently as this month with a foundation that we support. So they had someone who was, on their hosted payment page, just keying in the wrong, credit card information 4 or 5 times, and they actually got their account, shut down temporarily. So then, we're getting phone calls as to, so we put these velocity filters in place for them, kind of as a safeguard. So we see it. I think if your provider can't mention some of these filters or these safeguards off the top of your head, it may be time to start courting another provider, because it should be taken seriously, and it should be as simple and straightforward to talk about as we are, today.
Yeah, that's a good point, that you can actually have your merchant account turned off.
Yeah.
Like if your provider says, well, gosh, they're just not doing what they need to do to keep the risk out of this account, we will just turn them off. And that's bad in so many ways.
Yeah. It wasn't the most fun phone call, we ever received, but we were able to work through it. And, those filters are in place for a reason. They're there to protect you guys. So as nonprofits, and
yes,
protect.
I'll just add, for the card brands, this is a really important issue. And so there's a lot of focus on it. So, sometimes it may not even be your acquirer's decision. If the card brands see a lot of card testing transactions coming through that they know are fraudulent, they may block it. They may send something to the acquirer and says, that you need to turn this account off until they get it under control. So, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where someone else is, making a decision to basically temporarily deactivate your account while you put the proper controls in place. Just get those proper controls in place up front, and you won't face the issue.
Yeah. I see a couple of things in the chat. Ben mentions how basically they were saved by the fraud filters in authorized.net and identified, we're able to put a stop to some activity there. And then John asks, are the fraud filters in place automatically? No, I mean, that's something you need to configure.
Yeah. So what I would say on that is you are onboarded with certain filters in place. If your account is compromised, if someone phished a password or whatnot, and we see this often, is they can go in and just change the filters, right? So there is some initial protection, but you absolutely should be in there taking a look at them, setting them at appropriate levels for your specific business rather than just a default. And then we also, just for authorized.net, we monitor for that, and we'll actually go in and put in filters in place if we see an attack, but that is sort of reactive in nature, right? The attack has already started, and so a proactive approach is always best.
Yeah, and I will note that here at For Good Cause, when we if you have us, you're consulting with us and having us set up your payment systems, that we will actually configure that all for the client based on our 25 years of doing this. We'll actually go in and configure that for you guys. So if any of our clients are on, if they have questions about what their filters are, you can just get in touch with me and we can kind of go through that. But that's such a huge thing. We're kind of running up on time. I was hoping to talk a little bit about PCI and that type of stuff, but basically it's, hey guys, don't have cards sitting on your yellow legal pads in the office, and
No sticky notes.
No sticky notes. There are just a lot of things, just be wary, be careful about what you're doing. And like Chip says, who has access to the payment systems? I think that's an excellent point.
And don't keep them stored on don't keep payment numbers stored on any device in your system.
No.
Use a tokenization and get it all off of your environment.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. There's a reason why when you go anywhere, even authorized.net, you cannot see the full card number. You cannot see it. And there's a reason for that. You don't want those absolutely anywhere. Before we kind of wrap, I just want to just really just kind of offer anybody here, and I'll follow up with a link to this as well in the follow-up when I send the recording. I'm going to launch this little link here. George and I, we've been kind of doing payment processing audits for nonprofits, and it really, click here, you can fill this in. You'll book 15 minutes with me, and I'll just kind of walk you through how the audit works. George, if you want to kind of talk about, hey, we'll need a few statements, and then we can kind of come back to you with, we can basically talk to you about this is what you're paying and why.
Yeah, so we have a free statement tool for nonprofits spelled with AI. It uses, I'm kind of lifting under the hood and showing you guys the motor, but it uses OCR technology, or optimal character recognition technology, similar to if anyone did their taxes this year through TurboTax. It's the same concept of, just upload a W-2 and you're going to scan and you're going to see these different categories, kind of, item by item broken down into, what's negotiable and what's non-negotiable. Here's where we can help. And chances are there's something we can find to help you guys kind of optimize your costs. Yeah.
And when we chat in the first 15 minutes with myself, if you guys, I'm happy to also do a donation page audit as well. I'm happy to kind of look at your site and your donation page and just kind of see, are you using best practices there? Do you have the right payment options? What's available for you? We can kind of pair, kind of both of our backgrounds to just kind of look holistically at what you're doing and just make some recommendations for you. And we'd be very, very happy to do that. If you guys have any last questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to just put some kind of a future question out there to both you guys. Chip, what do you see as maybe some future trends here in payment processing and or things that nonprofits should be thinking about going forward?
Yeah, I would probably just go back to, everything should be mobile first, and just the importance of, giving people options, with digital wallets and making sure your payment, checkout page is optimized for mobile. That's pretty clearly where the industry is headed and how people want to pay, which I think is the most important thing. So, give them the form functions that they want to pay in is probably what I would say.
Yeah. George, anything future that you see, or let's say I'm a nonprofit, I'm out shopping for payment processing. What should I be asking? How am I going to vet? What are the kind of big takeaways that I should be thinking about as I think about payment processing?
Yeah, I think Chip said it best, more options than less. And I think my parting advice would just be, don't go out it alone. You have experts, here on this call who are more than happy to make themselves available for you guys moving forward. So ask questions. Don't sign up for something you're uncomfortable with. Get a second opinion, and just find someone you trust to run things by and look at your costs, get a second opinion. And, we have a free option here leaving today. So we'd love to take a look at it for you.
Yeah. Guys, really appreciate having you on today. You guys are amazing. Appreciate having all the nonprofits in here today. We have a nice attendance. I really appreciate you guys. Been fantastic. So really appreciate it. Again, I'll follow up with a recording probably in the next day or so. So look for that and just reach out with any questions that you have. Chip, George, you're on LinkedIn, so I'm sure anybody can reach out and find you guys there and
Please
connect
do.
with you. And
Absolutely.
and reach us anywhere. For a good cause. Oh, thanks, Amanda. Amanda put the URLs for you guys in there.
Thanks.
That's awesome. So
Yeah, shoot me a request.
happy. Anything else that comes up, we're happy to answer it. Thanks again, guys, and everybody in there. Thanks for what you're doing for your community. We'll talk soon. See you on the next
Thanks
one.
a lot.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Appreciate it. Bye.